Hey, what is up guys? This is Nishi from MST.TV here, back with another Market Watch episode. So today we are going to take a look at some more meta relevant cards. The format is starting to shape up and people are starting to realize what the best decks of the format are and what decks are the most fun for them to play. And so looking forward, the format seems to be stabilizing a bit. I think that the next big shakeup shouldn't be until we have the Albaz structure deck, which doesn't drop until April, unless maybe Ghost from the Past 2 brings something really crazy with it. With that being said, we are starting to see a lot more volatility of cards on the market. So today we're going to take a look at some of those archetype or engine specific cards that are currently trending. Let's get started. Okay, so kicking things off, let's talk about the Adventurer token engine, specifically the Water Enchantress and Rite of Ramesir. Of course, these two are the most valuable and sought after cards coming out of the Grand Creators, and with very good reason. The Adventurer token engine is arguably the strongest engine in the entire game, where basically you play 6 copies of a card that gets you a +3 single-handedly. It should come as no surprise that the Adventurer token deck is seeing play in a lot of different strategies, including things like Phantom Knights, Eldritch, and Dragonlink. Now at the moment, each of these cards is quite expensive, sitting at around $60 to $65 each. Now on release, these cards were around $50, and it did start to look like they were going to trend downwards, but all of a sudden they shot up to $70 or $75 before settling back down once again at $55, and then now they're starting to creep back up once again. Now looking forward, I'm honestly expecting this package to be a part of whatever the meta decks are in any given format for like the next year. That is, even if we were to see hits to something like Phantom Knights, for example, I think that we should still expect to see the Adventurer token stuff used in another deck and therefore maintaining top tier status. That being said, I honestly don't really see either of these cards dropping in price anytime soon. If anything, I could see them actually trending the other way, moving upwards to $75 to $80, especially if we have another large event and the Adventurer token engine's representation remains quite strong. As a relatively new engine, we should also remember that the pieces themselves probably aren't getting hit or reprinted anytime too soon either. If you guys were waiting for this engine to drop in price before picking it up, I think you may have missed your chance. I definitely see these couple of pieces maintaining and staying at their current prices for quite some time. Next up, let's take a look at Wanderies and the Advent of Adventure. This is a relatively new card just officially coming out in the Battle of Chaos set. This is actually a really useful card in the Wanderies deck as a quick play spell card that lets you banish a winged beast from your hand or field to search for a Wanderies monster or field spell from your deck. What's really cool is that this basically allows your Wanderies monster that you've normal summoned to dodge your opponent's effect failure or infinite impermanence and still resolve its effect, so your turn doesn't just end immediately. So with a lot of sets, right, even though cards may be more expensive on release, they do tend to fall in price pretty quickly. However, with the Advent of Adventure, even though the card was at around $10 and looked like it was gonna fall, it kind of out of nowhere jumped right back up to $20 before now slowly settling back down to around the $13 to $15 mark. A bunch of you guys did point this out to me in the comments of last week's Market Watch, so big thank you to you guys. Now, I think that with this buyout, people might actually just be really big on the Wanderies deck and believe that it's kind of like a sleeper pick this format, which could potentially be true. It's not a deck that I've really tested out much myself though, so I'm not too familiar with it. It seems a bit strange to me, since I could definitely see the deck bricking a lot, or maybe just plain losing to something like Skill Drain. Who knows? Anyways, if you guys are big on the Wanderies deck, then maybe you just need to wait a couple of weeks for this card to cool back down in price, especially if the deck doesn't perform. If the deck turns it around and does become like the best deck of the format all of a sudden, then of course this card should go up in price. But ultimately, with so many other good decks in the format right now, I think that it is pretty unlikely, and I'm expecting this card to tank in price back down fairly soon. Alright, so this one is probably going to seem really random, but Roxrose Dragon is a card that has spiked in price over the last couple of days. This is a super rare from Lightning Overdrive that is a one-of in the Adventurer token 10e deck. That deck plays 3 copies of Red Rose Dragon, and Roxrose Dragon is the monster that you summon out of your deck when you use Red Rose as a synchro material. This card is basically a free special summon out of the deck that also searches for Basil Rose Shoot, which is another extender as well. The Adventurer token 10e deck actually looks really cool and really fun. It's something that I think a lot of people are turning to as sort of a variation on Sword Soul. Now because of this, even though Roxrose is just a super from a relatively new set, we did see the card go from being under $1 to now being $3 to $4 a copy. Even though it is just a one of, the card is pretty hard to find if you're just checking around locally. Lightning Overdrive was honestly a pretty bad set outside of a couple things like Diviner, Roxrose Dragon, and Fafnir, so there's probably not too much of it that was opened, so a lot of people just won't have this card lying around at home. If you guys did open some of that set, you may want to see if you have any extra copies of this card lying around in your bulk so that you can dig them up and offload them while they're worth something and being somewhat sought after. On to the next card, we have DDD Flame King Genghis. This card is a super rare for the DDD deck, a strategy that has gotten very popular over the last few weeks with the release of Battle of Chaos. It's an old strategy that got some really big buffs with the new cards, however the deck is incredibly difficult to play with lots of different combo lines. Over the last week or two, we've actually seen a lot of different DDD archetype cards shoot up in price. The one we're looking at here is just one that caught me really off guard because I remember seeing this card come out at like 50 cents or something like that. Flame King Genghis is one of the main extra deck monsters for the strategy, as you can easily make it with Necro Slime or Swirl Slime. It's a body and it's able to summon another monster out of your graveyard. On top of that, because it's a level 6, it allows you to make the Wave High King Caesar, an on-theme monster that negates a card or effect that special summons a monster. Now, Genghis is a 2 of in DDD decks, and the card only has one printing as a super rare tin promo from way back in 2016. Due to this limited availability yet sudden surge in demand for the card, we are now seeing the Flame King Genghis at $10 each. I'm thinking that with all of the DDD support we got in Battle of Chaos, we could definitely see a bunch of DDD cards get reprinted in Ghost from the past 2, especially since a lot of the cards could also use a holo bump, and that would be a great place to reprint multiple cards from the archetype. Hopefully we will see something like that, which will make the deck more affordable and accessible, and will encourage people to try out the strategy. Alright, a weird one for us to touch on briefly, it is the Mecha Phantom Beast tokens. Now here in the TCG, they were only officially printed in OTS Tournament Pack 9. However, theoretically, any individual Mecha Phantom Beast token is harder to pull than your average token like a Primal Being or an Ice Barrier. That's because there are 3 different artworks for tokens that all had the same set ID, so you actually only had like a 1 in 3 chance of pulling the specific type of token that you wanted. That does add an element of like collectability and scarcity, with Mecha Phantom Beast Auroradon being a meta-relevant card now. With Sword Soul and Adventurer token Tenyi running around in the game, I guess players are wanting to pick up one of each of the 3 Mecha Phantom Beast tokens, which has caused all 3 of them to jump up in price across the board, where each of them is now sitting anywhere between $10 to $15. To me, this is kind of silly. Like, I understand that it's cool to want to have like the correct token available to use, but at the same time, you can literally use any token in existence and it performs the exact same function. If you guys are one of those people that wants them, that's fine, especially since you probably picked them up a while ago while they were only a couple of bucks. But if you don't have them and are looking at getting some tokens to use, do yourself a favor, just buy some other more generic and affordable ones for $1 or $2 and take that $40 that you would have spent here and buy something a lot cooler. Next up, we have the Sage with Eyes of Blue. So over the last couple of weeks, Blue Eyes has become pretty popular. The deck became a lot stronger with the new support from Battle of Chaos, and of course, there's some great deck lists that are floating around online that were posted by Yassine and Team Samurai X1. Now this card is of course a staple in the Blue Eyes deck, allowing you to search for a level 1 light tuner monster from your deck when this card is normal summoned. This is typically going to be the White Stone of Ancients, but it can actually also be used to search for Effect Veiler if needed. It also has another effect while it's in your hand, where you can send it and an effect monster on your side of the field to the graveyard to summon a Blue Eyes from your deck as well. Now this card is the main normal summon in the Blue Eyes deck, which otherwise doesn't really need the normal summon. Now, Sage with Eyes of Blue actually has quite a few different printings. There's the original Ultra from Shining Victories, and then an ultra rare reprint in Legendary Duelist Season 2 that includes the colored rares. Any of those versions are going to cost you between $6 and $8. And then there's also 2 secret rare printings that do look really nice as well from Battles of Legend Light's Revenge and Legendary Collection Kaiba. They are going to be a little bit more, right at $8 to $10, but they are very, very beautiful printings. Obviously, with Blue Eyes being such an iconic card in Yu-Gi-Oh's history, a lot of people are going to gravitate towards that and want to try to build the deck and test it out. And from the list that I've seen people playing, it can be pretty scary if played properly, but it's probably just not going to be top tier or anything like that. With the Blue Eyes support being so new, I think there is a good chance that we could see Sage reprinted in something like Ghost from the past 2. So if you're wanting to build the deck, maybe hold off for now on picking up those copies of Sage just in case. Alright guys, and the final card we're taking a look at for today, it is Chaos Emperor, the Dragon of Armageddon. So this is a card that we're looking at that is used in Blue Eyes, but it's also a piece that's being used in Dragon Link decks as well. For one, this card is pretty easy to summon. You can special summon it from your hand by banishing a dark and light monster from your graveyard so it can function there as a free body for you to link or Xyz with. But it also has a useful pendulum effect. While it's in the pendulum scale, you can pay 1,000 life points to add a banished dragon monster from your banished pile back to your hand. This card is just a one of, probably in either strategy, but it actually only has one easily accessible printing, and that is as a short printed secret rare from Battles of Legend Armageddon. There is of course the prize card super and ultra rare versions. Those are extremely expensive. We're not going to bother looking at those ones here. However, the secret rares are actually incredibly difficult to find, and at the moment there's extremely limited quantities available on TCG Player. Theoretically, the cheapest listing by a verified TCG Player seller right now is like around $100, but according to the sold listings, we haven't seen them move for more than 70, which sounds a little bit more realistic to me. This is a really cool card that helps out two strategies that are outside of the meta to be a little bit more competitive, so naturally there's going to be a lot of people who are trying to pick up the card, which is why we've seen the price increasing pretty steadily over the last little while. I don't know exactly how long it's going to be before this card gets reprinted, right? It's one of those things where the card could go another couple of years without a reprint and it just kind of stays really expensive, but it's just a one of, so it's okay. Or I could also see it getting a reprint as early as Ghosts from the Past 2 and being much more accessible to everyone. Where that reprint actually lands is anybody's guess. Okay guys, that is all I have for you in today's episode. It's pretty cool to see so many decks that are still in the format and able to compete, even though Phantom Knights are still really strong, right? With the Brave Token stuff, I think there's a lot of other different rogue decks and strategies that can still compete and win, which makes the game really fun to me. Anyways guys, if you did enjoy today's Market Watch, please make sure that you let me know by hitting that thumbs up button for me. Also make sure you leave a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know what you guys think about the cards we talked about today and what other cards are trending on the market as well, so I can cover them in a future episode. Also, if you guys haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button to get all of the latest and greatest content from both Tombox and myself here on the channel. And until next time guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.